It's about designing your life. What is the life you want to live? How do you want to live? You're making decisions. You're designing your life. Now you make your business fit into the design of your life. You're never going to get it 100% right. But ultimately, you are doing the best that you can do with what you have in this very moment.
Couple of months in the works, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
Mr. Ken Attard, welcome on the show.
Thanks. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Love being driven over.
Yeah, your energy is infectious. I was like, I've had a really long day, good day, but long day. I was feeling really tired, but after talking to you just now, I feel re-energized, reinvigorated, refreshed.
It's amazing how that happins,
Absolutely, right?
It's a really interesting concept, for people to recognize how they're showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love feeding off other people's energy in a good way, right? So I try and mimic and maintain the level of enthusiasm that you bring.
Yeah. And we also have to be very mindful, Sometimes people are in a place where we still have to recognize, hey, we can't be too over the top, right?
Absolutely.
We have to be very mindful of that.
Absolutely. Like if I'm in a mood usually where I'm like, I just want to take in the moment and chill. I was in a Ed Sheeran concert yesterday.
Okay.
Spoilers for the filming date of this episode. But was on a Ed Sheeran concert yesterday, and I hadn't listened to Ed Sheeran for a very long time, but I did. I do love my Ed.
Mm-hmm.
And my partner was like super excited, jumping around and listening and singing, and I was just like this, just taking in the moment. He's an amazing musician.
Yeah.
He does everything on loop pedals, so this guy is like,
cool, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. And she was like, kept asking me, are you okay? You're not having fun? I was like, I am in awe. I'm having a lot of fun, but just my energy was just not.
And you know what I like about
around.
him as well? I don't know if you saw his documentary.
No.
I can't remember what it's called. I actually did a post not a while ago. It was sort of like, it was in recognition of his documentary, because I loved how authentic it was. That's what I like about him. He's raw, he's authentic, he's real. I think if you see him on stage and you see him walking around a shopping mall, you're going to see the same person.
He is. And even like, we commented yesterday, I was like, the guy's just having fun. The guy's just doing what he did before he was famous, and he's just now doing it in front of a crowd of 30,000.
Exactly. And how brilliant is that? And, that a person of that stature now and that fame, if you'd like to call it, can still be that authentic, which is a rarity nowadays.
It is a rarity, but I think it's going full circle.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially like with the newer generations now, they like being genuine and being authentic is better than having the credibility or the criteria or the whatever or the faith.
Yeah, it's definitely the younger generation are definitely recognizing a few things that, let's say, the older generation like myself potentially did not recognize.
They killed like not they, but someone like Jennifer Lopez killed her own fame in the last 3 months just because of the way she spoke to a journalist. And she had to cancel her tour because apparently there were 0 tickets getting bought.
So being very, I have no idea, but I had heard something vaguely about it.
I just heard about it. I mean,
vaguely about it. I have no idea yet. To me, authenticity is a real big thing. This is what I love about even doing something like this. I mean, both you and I, as such, let's make it clear, we're prepared. But we're prepared just from our experiences and stuff, and our own stories. I mean, how difficult is it for me to talk about what I believe I know about? I mean, I really don't need to be studying it. And same thing. So the rawness of things. Recently, in fact, I had done a talk, and I actually named it "Mindset Unplugged," because I wanted people to understand that this is just a talk that is raw, that is authentic, and things don't need to be really difficult or rocket science. And
you're not a rocket scientist or a doctor, and I keep telling the clients I work with, because you see a lot of people in the operational world where there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions, a lot of panicking when something doesn't go right or something is wrong or a client is upset or even an employee is upset. You're working in an HR world.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep telling people, just relax, don't send that email straight away, don't make that decision today, no one's gonna die, you're not a surgeon.
So
you're not a rocket scientist.
Yeah,
Just
so important. This
take
is
in the moment,
yeah, so important. This, like you're saying, to take, in in many different situations, let's say, but in taking that, you'd be surprised what a split second can accomplish. And when I say a split second, in the sense of taking that step back before reacting, you take that split second and say, okay, wait a second, do I really want to react this way? And I'm using the word react on purpose because what I have identified, for me at least, what I've understood now is that it's much more important to actually respond than to react. React is simply reacting. So basically, you are going to react in a way that you have always done in a situation like that or similar situation like that. You are reacting it out. But when you respond, you've actually taken the time to say, okay, just a second here. What's the result I want from this? How do I want this to go? Could I respond in a different way rather than the reacting? Because the reacting is simply coming from the learned behaviors. That's what you've learned. So very simple example is you've learned that when you're angry, you yell. That's the way you do it. But more often than not, you realize it's not resourceful because someone's just going to yell back at you. You're not going to get what you wanted anyways.
And you've just wasted the time.
Yeah,
right?
so now you take a moment and you say, just a second, could I respond differently here rather than just reacting? And you respond differently. Say, okay, let me respond this way and let me see what happens. And you say, oh, I got a different response. Well, yeah, you did something differently. You didn't do the same thing over and over.
It falls in line with, so I'm doing this coaching course, and it falls in line with the transactional analysis model, right? Where you're like, do I want to be a child? Do I want to be a parent here? Or do I just want to be an adult and reason and respond with a reasonable, logical
I
answer?
I don't know that. I don't know that particular thing that you're talking about.
I didn't know until I did this course, but apparently it's a very commonly used.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely, because there's different terminologies for different things. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. Like sometimes people are. I mean, let's face it. Like we talk a lot about, for instance, bullying at school. For instance, we have a lot of bullying adults.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
They're just grown-up children.
and that's exactly what transactional analysis.
There you go. See,
the context or the theory behind. It's not a theory. It's kind of the scientific background and context behind this is that each person has 3 states of ego, which is either the parent, the adult, or the child. And there's 2 different versions. I think there's the child. There's one which is resentful. The other one's repressed. Might be wrong. I'll look it up.
Yeah. There's
there's the critical parent and the nourishing parent. Yeah. And then there's the adult, which is the self-respecting, but also externally respecting. So I'm respecting you as an adult, but I also respect my boundaries and what I talk about, right? So the aim of transactional analysis is to always try and bring the baseline conversation to adult, because you don't want to be a parent and be overly overbearing or nourishing in the conversation.
The helicopter parent, right?
That's it, yeah. Or do you want to be too nourishing, which then becomes pedantic and patronizing and all that stuff?
Absolutely.
And then you don't want to be the child, because the way you respond will be very submissive or very rebellious.
Yeah, and I believe a lot of those behaviors are very much reliant on. So it ties in very much with learned behaviors. Those learned behaviors. Remember, they've been carried forward potentially. Like me, I mean, I've learned things from my parents, who learned things from their parents. Until someone actually decides or questions and says, "Okay, just a second, why exactly do we do it like this?" There's a great story. I don't even know if when we had, first met up a couple of months ago, I mentioned this. There's a great story about the granddaughter at Christmas turns to her mother and says, "Why is it we cut off the turkey legs?" And the mother's like, "I really don't know. Ask your grandmother." So the daughter goes to the grandmother and says, "Listen, why is it we cut off the ends of the turkey legs, Why do we do that?" And the grandmother did not have the answer either. Now, the great-grandmother was still alive. So she said, "Go ask your great-grandmother." Because so the mother said, "Listen, my grandmother always did it like that. That's why I did it." The grandmother said, my mother always did it like that. That's why I do it. So the daughter went to the great-grandmother and said, "Listen, why is it that we cut off the turkey legs? The ends of the turkey legs?" And the great-grandmother just said to the child, Well, when I used to cook, we didn't have big enough dishes.
Jesus.
Right? And it's a really classic example of until we actually question, and this is one of my pet peeves is I truly believe that so many, I'll say entrepreneurs, but also individuals have been fooled. And what do I mean by that? Just because you have been taught something doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
So it is important to question, and I mentioned entrepreneurs because in the entrepreneurial world, one of the biggest things that keeps coming to light over and over, you attend events, you read books, you listen to podcasts, all this stuff. It's amazing how every entrepreneur will talk to you about the struggles. We'll talk to you about the suffering. We'll talk to you about the sacrifices. We'll talk to you about the stress. Now, hear me out. I get it. The thing is this, though. It's heard so much over and over and over.
It loses value.
Not that it loses value. Far from it, actually. So I'm listening to all of these things, and I'm reading, and I'm attending, and I hear suffering and struggle. And I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a budding entrepreneur, for instance. Now I've associated, if I believe these, I have associated success. To be a successful entrepreneur, I need to suffer. I need to sacrifice. I need to struggle. I need to be stressed out. Because if I do not have all of these components, then there's no way I can be successful. It can't be easy going for me. Now, okay, for those of you listening right away, you're going to go, but Ken, come on. You might even be saying this yourself.
No, I agree with you.
You might be going, come on, Ken, you know that you have to make those sacrifices and there's going to be struggling. It doesn't have to be that way. And it's all about reframing and understanding how mindset actually works. Because if you're going to associate this way, and this is why so many entrepreneurs end up self-sabotaging themselves, because the minute they start to, taste that success and business becomes a little bit easier. So let's use our example with your podcast, okay? So your podcast here, you're building it up, maybe you're not exactly where you want to be yet, but you're in the process. And then the time is going to come when, you're extremely successful and it's working perfectly smoothly, right? And now you go, oh, wow, this is way too easy. I must be doing something wrong. Because I'm supposed to be struggling, I'm supposed to be suffering, I'm supposed to be sacrificing. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm interested in telling you, hey, you know what? What if you could actually, and we were just talking about, what if we could actually just have fun?
Yeah.
What if your business could be fun? What if it could be impactful? Right? What if it could be inspirational? What if you could be inspired in your business so that you can inspire others? And now it becomes more flowing. It becomes easier. Does that mean that you're not going to have a challenge? Of course you are. That's your growth spurts. We're here, we're Grow Up, right? Podcast, right? Those are your growth spurts. And when you grow but now you can recognize that I can still enjoy myself even through the challenge. Now we're going to start to talk about real success.
That's such a good point. And if I going back to your parents and grandparents and great grandparents and all that, it's just such a good analogy for generational trauma and behaviors and obsessive thoughts. And I came across this book. I call it "It Didn't Start With You." Mm-hmm. And it does talk about how inherited family trauma shapes who we are, and how to end the cycle.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. And usually it's the black sheep of the family that does that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the person that challenges the way the family
Absolutely.
the family thinks, right? So there are certain things, and it does say here, stuff is inherited, like depression, anxiety, all that stuff can be inherited. Not always,
but inherited in the sense of, so that people understand, not necessarily genetically inherited.
No, behaviorally,
learned behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely,
and that can absolutely happen, and Up to a certain extent, this is what I think. Like, I mean, and I understand this with the trauma, and I have the utmost respect for this work with the trauma as well. Again, it starts to become
Gray.
and it starts to become overused as well, like for everything, right? And then, like, so let's face it, as children growing up, all of us, at some instances that we've had instances in our families where something was somewhat. Because, again, not necessarily traumatic, because trauma is really big. And yes, there are people who go through some really big stuff, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But we're also learning, things like, simple things like, money doesn't grow on trees. Well, a really great one, this is surprising to many people, right? When we have children. So, I have a daughter, and I'm guilty of this as well, probably when I was much younger and probably didn't realize certain things. I mean, just to give people an idea here, I have a 31-year-old daughter. So, when we say to our kids something, our kids are really excited about something, right? And, they want to, and we say something to them like, you can't have everything in life.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big deal. So you have a child who is excited, who is looking forward to achieving whatever they want to achieve or having whatever they want to have.
That's a killer,
and we say something to them as simple as, and I understand it, don't get me wrong, I can understand where a parent's coming from, right? Because we're not going to buy them every single toy they want and everything. But when we say to them, you can't have everything in life, we are installing a firm belief. Now, when a child, especially between the ages of 0 and 7, this is where all the programs are being installed.
Yeah.
So, again, not to put any pressure on parents, because you're never going to get it perfect. Let's make something very clear. Okay?
I have a 6-year-old, so I've got a year.
You've got a year
to unfuck it up.
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Jesuits used to say, give me, obviously because they were boys, but give me a boy between the age of 0 and 7, and I will show you the man.
That's fair.
Because they knew stuff. They knew.
So, question, because this is something, so there's a belief, like, not a belief, I think, because it's my belief.
Mm-hmm.
Is trauma subjective? So what do you find traumatic? I might not.
It could. It's the way. Okay, so let's make something very clear. I'm going to make this really clear to the listeners as well.
Yeah,
Trauma is not my expertise.
Okay.
Yet the way I look at it is this. It ultimately boils down to the meaning you are putting on it. Yes. So if you want to say subjective in that sense, it is the meaning you are putting on it. So let me give you a simple example. 2 people are traveling. They're going on the same trip.
Mm-hmm.
The meaning one puts on it is, I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to this vacation. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to have an amazing time. The other person, it's exact same trip, exact same flight, exact same location. Everything's the same. The other person, oh my God, what do I need to take with me? I hope everything's going to go okay on the flight. I hope the hotel is okay. I hope we're not going to have that. I hope it's not going to be too...
That's me. Just explain.
It's the meaning you're putting on it. And this happens to people when something's told to them as well, right? So someone says something to them, right? So someone's at work and their boss says something to them. And they've interpreted it in a certain way and they've put a meaning on it that somehow they've done something wrong.
Yeah.
And now, they're worried about it. They're worried about what their boss is thinking. They're worried about whether their job is in jeopardy. And they're putting all these things on them, and they're not even true.
Yeah, I came across a clip or a reel or something, a reel I think it was. I'm not sure if it was a TikTok or a reel. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Same thing.
Same thing.
And it's just like one of the worst things you can tell somebody who's like who has an anxiety disorder or is ADHD or something like that is, can we have a chat tomorrow? And just leave it at that. And I was like, that is so me, man. Like if someone said that to me, I would be like, nope, no, we cannot. You need to tell me what it is now because you just ruined my day otherwise.
But this is really important. This is really important.
It's a throwaway question, right?
Yeah, It could be. But remember, you're only looking at one side, because for you it's a big thing. Now, for them, potentially, maybe it is a big thing too. And maybe for them, the best way for them to handle it, maybe right now is not a good moment for them to handle it as well. So this is why it's so important for people to understand and to learn. And it's an amazing skill for leaders. It's an amazing skill for leaders when you can shift your perspective. Okay, just a second here. Yeah, I want to know what's going on. This happens in couples as well. You have the guy who wants to settle the situation right now, and you have the woman going, no. It's okay. Everything's fine. Now is not the time to settle. Whatever. And sometimes vice versa. So we have to be, as a good leader, if we want to talk about leaders, I need to be able to fit in the shoes of my employer. And I need to recognize and say, okay, what I said right now, could that be disturbing to that person? Could they potentially, this is where the emotional intelligence comes in now, right? And being mindful of that, so that maybe I can tell my employer, listen, you know what? That wasn't really a big thing. You know, we'll discuss it tomorrow, but put your mind at rest. It's really not a big thing. For instance, a good leader is going to do something like that, right? They're not going to leave the person hanging, unless someone wants to be passive aggressive and that's not good leadership then, right?
That's manipulative.
That's definitely not good leadership, And another interesting aspect, I just wanted, because when you were talking about, and with regard, and it could potentially tie into trauma as well. And again, I'm not negating any, there's some definitely some serious stuff out there, without a doubt, and people go through things. But do you know that research has shown that 50% of the stuff that we recall is not even true?
Yeah, which is why
50%. That's a high percentage.
Yeah. Which is why memory, I think, especially, I'm sure it's in the US, but memory in court is not something that withholds, right? You need that's why witnesses exist.
So that's why you can have. I don't have siblings, but you can have two siblings, and one will recall an event as a child, and say, "Oh, that was such an amazing event," and the other one will go, "I don't remember it that way."
Yeah.
Right? It's just so we need to recognize that as well, right? So especially when we're recalling stuff, sometimes we're actually making up stuff, enhancing stuff potentially.
Oh yeah, I'm really good at that.
And hey, if it's for the good, I believe if it's something that's going to make you feel good.
Yeah. So I've got this habit, and most of my close friends will tell you, if I am explaining a story that's that's funny and it's meant to make people laugh or get people excited about, I don't know, a video game that I really like, or to come and train jiu-jitsu, or or to get into entrepreneurship, or stuff I'm passionate about, read a book I enjoy, whatever. I will tend to I wouldn't call myself a liar, because I'm really big on being honest and truthful as much as possible. But if I'm excited about the story,
you're a storyteller.
Right? I wouldn't say there was 10 glasses. I'd be like, there was 35 fucking glasses all over the place. And a dragon came, and I was but
you're a storyteller, man.
But yeah,
stories are brilliant.
Yeah, but it creates this hyperbolic picture, and I could feel my partner breathing, just going.
What are you talking about?
That's not which pisses me off, but I'm like, she's actually right. I'm being a bit of an exaggerator, but no.
Yeah, she's like, I was there,
I was there, but no, but memory biases are absolutely true. In court, they're true in reality. You remember one way. For example, me and my brother, sometimes we talk about generational trauma quite a bit. And we talked about it in front of my parents,
right?
And they'd be like, "Oh no, that's not exactly how we remember it," which is very common across the board, I think, with everyone. But and we're like, that was pretty fucked up. That was a pretty horrible experience.
Yeah, I know. The thing is this, though. And again, because for them, because you are identifying it as, trauma.
Yeah. Character building. Let's call it character building.
Character building.
Yeah.
Okay. But whatever way you want to identify with it. I mean, I would identify with it in a way that's going to make me feel better.
Oh, yeah.
Ultimately, right? So if character building, say, okay, that was character building. What I want to recognize here, though, and I think this is important as well for people to understand, because it will help them to overcome whatever it is. Whatever your parents did, and again, I understand there are let's say there are some limits.
Yeah,
But
okay. For the record, I had really good parents. I wasn't brought up.
I can't complain as well. I have. Sometimes I wonder. I go, like, I had an amazing child. Like, I really can't say. Anyway, I was always encouraged. I was always there were certain things, But anyways, but still, remember, whoever it is, your parents, for instance. Remember, they had their beliefs.
Yeah.
They were taught. And ultimately, and this goes for every parent, and like I said in the beginning, you're never going to get it 100% right. But ultimately, you are doing the best that you can do with what you have in this very moment.
Oh, for sure.
In that very moment, you're doing the best. Now, you know what? 10 years later, so let me give you a classic example of my mother and knowledge, right? So my mom recalls as a child, as a baby, she actually fed me condensed milk.
Okay.
Now, let's put people in context here. I am 59. Okay? I'm 59. So we're going back some time. But she tells me how she gave. Now, my mom, to this day now, like, she's a very avid reader and she understands a lot of nutrition and that. And she probably puts her hand on her forehead and goes, what the hell was I thinking, right? But she was doing the best that she could do with what she had at that point in time. Even if we were to look at the stuff that potentially, and again, sometimes I think we exaggerate things nowadays as well, what we used to eat and all this. There's actually a phenomenal clip on YouTube. I don't recall what it is. Probably if you checked it out and said, there's a guy comes from the future to inform a family about what they're eating, right?
Right.
So this family is eating breakfast. This is it's an amazing clip if you can find. I don't know what you have to put in but they're eating breakfast, right? So the man's eating breakfast and she's giving him eggs, bacon, and whatever, and all this stuff. And this guy comes from the future, comes out of their bathroom, comes to the future. He goes, "Hey, listen, I came to tell you, eggs are not good for you. You can't have eggs. Like, you got to get." So they take the eggs off the plate, right? And this guy leaves. He goes back. So they're continuing eating. This guy comes back from the future, right? He goes, "Wait a second. They got it wrong. Eggs are okay, but it's the meat. But it's the meat. You can't eat the bacon."
It's this one, right?
That's the one. That's the one. It is. So then he comes back about 5-6 times, and it changes, right? So one day bacon's good for you, the next day bacon's not good for you. Eggs are good for you, eggs are not good for you. Coffee's good for you, coffee's not good for you. And this is what we're doing, right? So like and again, people are just doing the best that they can do with what they know at that point in time. And this is really important for the individual, so that they can actually be gentle on themselves. And hey, you know what? Yeah, you made some. At the time, they weren't mistakes. It's what you knew.
We came to that conclusion, both me and the missus, when we started, like, obviously when you have kids initially, we were like, oh, we need to make sure that, like, not to fuck her up, like, we need to make sure, like, we're stepping on eggshells. Is this correct? Is this the right level of play? Are we giving her too much toys? Are we giving her too little? And at one point, I think my partner turned, I was like, listen, we're going to fuck her up either way. So we might as well just enjoy the process of parenting and just not be horrible.
What a great analogy, though, when you said about enjoying the process of parenting, because this happens. Whenever I know someone who's going to be a new parent, I do my best not to give them guidelines or whatever. Like, I mean, I can mention a few things, but the one thing that I do mention is, like, listen, you're never going to get it perfect. And there are so many variables. Like, you can say, oh yeah, we're never going to give them screen time, right? Because it's the thing about not giving them screen time. Great, phenomenal. But is it realistically, are you never going to put this child in front of a screen? It's impossible in today's day and age. You can control it somewhat.
Yeah.
The other thing that I tell them is, and this is a great analogy for business as well, for business people as well, okay? Because it ties in very nicely. It's very nice how this unfolds without even thinking about this. The parents get lost in all of these things, and we need to feed the child, and we need to give them this, and we need to give them the best of this, but not too much of this. All these things you were saying. And 10 years have gone by, and you just really haven't enjoyed your child.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, then the child is too grown up.
To
interact.
Right? And how brilliant as a parallel with business. You're 10 years in your business and you go, I'm really not enjoying this anymore.
Yeah.
What a drag. You forgot to enjoy the whole process. And what is the sense of attempting to arrive somewhere, whatever this fictitious arrival is? Let's make it very clear, because you never arrive anyways.
Yeah.
Right, but you're attempting to, and you think that when you arrive, okay, now the joy is going to start. What's the sense of doing that when the whole process, the 10, 15 years it took for you to get to that, let's say, stage that you said was going to give you what you wanted, you were miserable the whole time. And you made everybody else around you miserable. And you no longer have friends.
Jimmy Carr said that on a recent podcast where he was like, it's not the pursuit of happiness, it's the happiness of the pursuit, right? It's just like having fun on the way. And I think, like, for me, as stressful as it is to be an entrepreneur or whatever, which
is it?
I don't know. I don't think it is, to be fair. And I'm just starting out, like money's not amazing. You're struggling. You're figuring out like what you're good at. You're figuring out like how you're going to spread yourself. If you're spreading yourself too thin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I going to keep up with this? I need to spend time with my family. I need to spend time with my parents, and I still need to build this business, and I'm working with that person, and am I going to have enough time to get through the day? Like, what am I going to be able to pay my mortgage in 6 months? Like, that's all worry and stuff. But
it could be, or it could be excitement.
Yeah, like for me, when I started out, I was really worried. Now I'm just just living day by day in the most planned way possible.
Yeah,
like, I've still got the next 4 weeks planned. Like my calendar's planned out, but I'm just like, okay, let's see what we're going to do today.
And things could change.
Yeah.
And things could change. And it's important to have that flexibility, right?
And opportunities come. And I think the best thing about entrepreneurship compared to being in a full-time employment, which again, nothing wrong. Like if that's your choice, your path in life, power to you. But like the good thing about entrepreneurship is you never know what's next, because you might just meet somebody that opens the door of opportunity.
Absolutely. And I'll tie that in with, and that's one of the things that kept me going as well as an entrepreneur, is the excitement of the potential.
Yeah.
There's no limits on it.
Yeah.
Whereas and again, like you said, I absolutely agree with you 100%. I have the utmost respect for people who enjoy their job. They love doing their 9-to-5 job. Oh dear God, if we didn't have these people.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So I have the utmost respect. And for some people, that is extremely fulfilling. Yet it does have its limitations, right? So when we want to talk about freedom, time freedom, financial freedom, yet it still can lead to true freedom. Whereas as an entrepreneur, like you're saying, there's that when I can wake up in the morning and go, let's see what today's going to bring.
Yeah.
What, potentially that new, I don't know, let's say big client comes in. That possibility is there.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting. That truly is exciting.
And I think, like, for me, it's been, it's been a difficult 6 months with a lot of stuff just happening in my life. With some personal challenges as well, but I've never been happier. Again, genuinely, it's just because I've just been myself, and I've been able to just be myself and not have to align myself with anyone else's beliefs, because I'm just in line with mine, and that's what I want to do.
Like, Daniel, you have no idea. I'm telling you, like, what you're saying is a huge gift you can give yourself, that anybody has the capacity to give themselves. Mm-hmm. You see, because identifying that you can just be yourself, that you're not performing for anybody else.
That's it.
It doesn't mean that you don't take advice from someone who potentially has a little more experience in something and see, like, oh, could I take this on? Could I do this a bit better? It doesn't mean that you don't do that. Yet you can also say, okay, I'm listening to this advice. Yeah, I could potentially let me see if I could apply this.
But that's like that for me is critical. Like, that's my curiosity. I just want to be.
Yeah. And it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Awesome. At the same time, I can also say, nah, this isn't me. this isn't me. This just isn't me. I don't feel authentic with this. And you can just put it aside, and you have every right to do that. This is one of the components, without a doubt, of true freedom. True freedom, one of the components of true freedom, and this is something that I've been really delving into more and more, because I believe it's missing. I think it's one of the missing links when it comes to business leaders, because we have to fit all of these roles. So if we're going somewhere, we need to be dressed this way. If we're going somewhere else, we need to speak this way. If we're going somewhere else, we need to act this way.
I've shown up in Crocs and shorts to an investors meeting.
Phenomenal. At my recent talk that I did, the last email I sent out to the attendees was the dress code. And the dress code was comfortable, whatever that is for you.
Yeah.
So if comfortable is pajamas to you, come in your pajamas. I got no problem. If comfortable is stilettos to you, come in your stilettos. I got no problem with it, because I don't need to judge that. It's not for me to judge. Whatever you're comfortable with, God bless you, man. Yeah. And this is one of the components of true freedom, is being able to say, I really don't care what other people think, or what other people are thinking about me, or whatever other people are saying about me.
Yeah.
I don't care. Doesn't mean I don't care about people. I have compassion for people. Doesn't mean I don't care about people's, let's say, opinions, and in the sense of listening to them and saying, okay, it's an opinion. Great. I accept the opinion. I don't have to agree with it. And I do that with the utmost. It's a very, very important component when it comes to true freedom. Without that, you'll never have it.
And I think maybe it has to do as well, because I've been training pretty hard physically as well, but or maybe just a combination of everything. I feel like I'm experiencing life differently now in the last few months than I ever did before. Where before I used to feel like I was in the middle of this chaos and everything's going wrong and I can't control it. But now I kind of just look at it more through an experiential lens.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, oh, I feel really angry right now. I'm like, oh, that person's not really acting right, is he?
Mm-hmm.
You know, with very little judgment, very little. There is some judgment sometimes. You know, we're human.
Well, we're human.
But very little judgment, and I'm like, oh, that's very interesting to see. Like that. That's how. Because I didn't expect that this person would react this way.
Yeah, and because potentially, essentially, it's going to boil down to perspectives.
Yeah.
Right? So as much as you're seeing that person doing wrong in your eyes, that person probably wouldn't have done what they did if they didn't think it was the right thing to do.
For sure.
Right? Because from their perspective, this was the right thing to do.
But I hear a lot from clients, so I do quite a bit of coaching now.
Yeah.
Thank God, or whatever deity anyone believes in that's listening. But and a lot of people, I hear it quite often that I'm like, I'm a slave of my business, kind of. I'm just stuck in this incessant loop of calls and meetings that I'm not enjoying anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, you should be enjoying that process. Like I engaged a client about a month ago as a fractional COO, right? And it's like it's been really, really busy. But I'm meeting so many new people and I'm tackling problems, and sometimes I have to diffuse heated up arguments and all that good stuff that comes with operations management. But I've not felt like I've worked a single day in the last month.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking, this is about 10 to 12 hour days, right? From the morning till the afternoon, till the evening, driving around, meeting people, getting to know, understanding business models, meeting clients, meeting vendors, figuring out why is this not working, compliance stuff and all that stuff. But I'm really and I go home and I'm like, did not feel like a day of work at all.
Well, you're evident.
It just felt like fun.
Yeah, and that is brilliant. That is brilliant. And I think we were talking a tiny bit before as well. That's absolutely brilliant. I don't think you could ask for more than that, because when we're truly enjoying ourselves,
yeah,
right? Like for me, even this, right? We're doing this podcast. We're sitting down, we're having great conversation. I could do this for hours.
Oh yeah,
no problem whatsoever. I'll enjoy it.
We did the first time we met. We spent like
we sat down and like I thought it was going to be like a 15-minute meeting, and then I don't know, an hour and a half later, we're like,
six.
I got to get back.
We're like, oh shit, I got a meeting.
So I think that's amazing. I think what's also important to recognize as well is that, and this is what we were mentioned before as well, is that because you tied in the hours there, right? That it's not compromising something else.
Yeah.
Right? So you want to look at things from an ecological vantage point. So saying, okay, right now I need to do these long hours, which is fine. It happens sometimes. Yet, I know how, jiu-jitsu is so important to you. Is it compromising your jiu-jitsu? Which it's not. You're not going to allow it. Is it compromising? And again, I'm saying that I'm talking to you right now, Daniel, but for those listening, and looking at your life and how you're designing your life, and the goals that you've set, wonderful to set goals. Yet when you're setting your goals, and saying, okay, I want to achieve this year. But for you to achieve that, it's going to compromise your health. It's going to compromise your relationships. It's going to compromise your spirituality. If again, tying those in with what your values are. So now if this goal is going to compromise these things, you might want to look at that, because you're probably going to have a few holes in that goal, because you want to alter the way you're going to move towards that goal and say, okay, how can I do this in a way that is not going to compromise all of these other things?
For sure. I've experienced exactly what you're talking about. Last year, I went into a job which was really exciting, but I had to stop training. Back then I had just started training jiu-jitsu, which was like almost a year ago now. And I had to stop doing something I was really enjoying. Barely had any time for family. Like, the job was very interesting, very cool, very busy, good salary as well. So I was like kind of, but I was absolutely miserable. And that was a big wake up call for me. So now I know there's no way I'm booking any meetings before 10 a.m. And that's the freedom of an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely.
Like, after 10 a.m. is free game till like midnight. I don't care, But like before 10 a.m., no chance, because I'm training till 9, right?
Yeah.
So I'm training at either from 8 till 9 or 7 till 9 or 6 till 9 sometimes, depending on, how good I feel. If I'm not sore, I've not pulled an elbow or dislocated my thumb like I did yesterday. Because that's another aspect of training a grappling sport or any form of combat sport, well, any form of high intensity sport, really. But that's become just a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
Same goes for family time. Like, there needs to be at least twice a week where we go out and do something. Could be low budget, could be going having dinner, which is pretty high budget these days. But it's like 100 quid for it. But
man, I had an experience in Sweden. Oh, you don't even want to hear about it.
But like, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that there are the non-negotiables.
Cool. And
I make sure to stick to those non-negotiables.
I have a question, actually, kind of, because you mentioned it's been a month and you're enjoying it. How much is that kind of the honeymoon period, kind of, and how is it kind of 5 years down the line when you're still doing that stuff, if it's going to kind of feel the same?
For sure.
That's always kind of something that's happening, kind of when you're trying a new job or whatever. Kind of first year, cool, everything is new. Once you kind of start doing it on loop, then that's where it comes a bit stagnant, and when your mindset is going to be.
Which is why I probably wouldn't be doing this in 3 years' time. And this is kind of the third month. So this is the first month I've engaged this client as an operations manager or a COO. But I've been doing work with this client for a few months before. So I kind of tested the water to make sure that the culture fits, that it's the right kind of people I want to talk to, that the problems are solvable. And that I know how to solve the problems, because I don't want to look like a dumbass. My reputation is my bread and butter.
And it is all about, like, there's a ton of stuff. Like, I just jotted down a couple of things that I wanted to mention. And this is a really interesting question about this, because it all boils down, and let's use this as a really good parallel with life as well. Because people, that's what happens to a lot of people. They just get into this habitual, and it's day in, day out.
Yeah.
Right? So it's all about creating new experiences. And they could be the simplest thing. I can give you an example. So recently, so a lot of times in the evening, for me in the evening, a lot of times, I'm up quite early. So I'm usually up by 5:30, 5:45. I have my non-negotiables, bit of meditation, bit of listening, bit of reading, all that stuff. And then by the evening, I'm like, usually, now let's make it very clear, even as we're recording this podcast, we're pretty getting close to the day where usually I would be like totally wound down by now, because it's just that. But yeah, this is a new experience. Not a new experience. I've done a ton of podcasts, but it's a new experience in this sense. Like, it was different, right? I got driven over here. It was good. And I'm enjoying the conversation. It's right up my alley, and it's a podcast I get to do in English and all that. Like, I love it, right? So, so it's all about new experiences. Recently, like, what was happening was in the evening sometimes with my girlfriend, it would become it came a little bit habitual. Like, and I'd be looking forward to it. Don't get me wrong. You sit down and say, let's watch an episode of this, and let me make something I'm very selective of what I watch. Sure. I'm not going to watch something that's going to make me feel bad. So it's either going to be comedy or maybe something really interesting that is something of the mind, not too gory or anything like that. I'm just not interested in that. But then recently I said to her, why don't we just play some Scrabble tonight? We pulled out a board game, played some Scrabble, had some conversation, had a couple of nibbles or something like, and we just enjoyed, and we really enjoyed it, right? It's just a different experience. Yeah. And this is the same thing in the business world as well. It's about creating those different experiences, right? So that you don't fall into that every day the same over and over and over. And yes, like you said, the entrepreneur has the added advantage that it might be a little easier to create that little bit of difference, that excitement. And it's all about, and the other thing that I jotted down here was, and it ties in with your non-negotiables and all that, is designing, choosing. This is so critical when it comes to entrepreneurs, and something that most have got it reversed out. It's about designing your life first. What is the life you want to live?
Yeah.
How do you want to live your life? So you've made a decision that part of the design of my life is this time of the day is my family time. Non-negotiable. It's how you want your life. Right? So you want your life. You design that you train at a certain time. You design that you want time for yourself at a certain time. You design that you'd like to travel a couple of times a year, for instance. You're making decisions. You're designing your life.
Yeah.
Now you make your business
around that
fit into the design of your life. What so many entrepreneurs are doing is they're so focused on building their business, and they're building their business, and they're doing an amazing job at building their business. Now they have to find a way to fit their life into the way they've designed their business. Doesn't work. It's not worth it in the end. It's not worth it. So you have to be very, very aware of how you are actually designing your life.
And I think I agree with you, like personally.
I hope so.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you personally. I'm just joking. But so here's the but. So I agree with you personally, because that's kind of what I want. Like, I ultimately want to be an entrepreneur, because I really dislike working for anybody. So I just
whatever reasons,
But there's also the argument against like being unique, original, or the best at something. So Elon Musk. Right. Yeah. Elon Musk is a very clear example of what I'm trying to say. The guy's obsessed. Yeah. The guy does not have any friends, or maybe he does.
Well, we don't know for certain, right?
But the guy lives and sleeps in his office, and he brags about it. So he's a clear cut. He has a goal for humanity to get on Mars, right? That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And he's obviously sacrificed so much to get there. Mm-hmm. So I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Absolutely.
Yes, design your life and all that, but there are just some people that just want to create, for example, they're obsessed with legacy, which I guess that's designing their life. That's what they want to do.
That's the way they're designing their life, and if that is going to suit them, my question though would be then, and if that works for them, absolutely fine, absolutely. The thing is this, is then ultimately though. Because that's great. Okay, great. I mean, we're going to put people on Mars. Okay, fantastic, great.
Yeah.
I mean, but anybody's life, whether it's Elon Musk, whether it's myself, whether it's yourself, it will come to a finite end.
Oh yeah.
Here, physically. Let's make something very
As far
clear.
as we know.
And this is another topic, though. But we never really die. Okay, it's the physical part that just dies. But that's okay. But that's a whole different episode, maybe potentially.
Maybe
we'll see.
potentially. Episode 2.
But yet the thing is this. And I've had classic examples of this. And we see this time and time recently, just in recent times. Things can change in a split second. Okay, your life can change in a split second.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so recently I met a friend recently. I was traveling to Gozo, and I bumped into a friend, sort of like not someone I had done some business with. And I said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Are you finally going to retire?" Because they've sort of like kept him on, He says, "Yeah, pretty soon, you're right." But then he went on to tell me, I don't know, and again, I don't have details about it, but that essentially there was some illness, not the greatest news, and he literally said to me, he said, "So you work all your life,
Yeah.
and then you don't know, like you come to this, right?" And I've had, And I've had numerous occasions recently where someone's told me that. So ultimately, this is what it is, though. And again, this is why the going inside is so important, and looking at ourselves so important, and recognizing what is it you truly want from life. Now, in the case of you're going to have, let's say, extremes. Let's say if we're going to use Elon Musk, I mean that's what he wants to do. That's what he wants to acquire, and if he's at peace with that, absolutely brilliant. But most people, even entrepreneurs. When they look back, they tend to say, "Oh, I wish I had so much more time for my kids," or "I wish I had more time for, taking care of my health." For instance, I just threw myself into. And again, I'm not saying something is right or wrong. I am explaining from my perspective and how I see it, and how I truly believe that someone can live a much more fulfilled life.
But I think, so I've been reading this book and I've been trying to finish it, but I'm horrible at reading books. I need to get the audiobook, to be fair.
But that's, you just said there, though? Okay, so let me stop you.
Yeah.
You just reaffirmed a belief that you have. Now, I know you've got this story of dyslexia and all this stuff.
No, it's not dyslexia, it's ADHD. But
or
anyway.
ADHD.
No, but I love reading books. It's just that I need to force myself to sit down. Once I start reading, the momentum kicks in, and then I'm just going to read it.
Because you keep saying it's hard to read books.
But it is very hard for me. Yeah, it's very hard to finish a book.
So stop saying that. Up until now, it's been hard.
Now, I used to be really good at finishing books, and then technology took over. Then I started video games. But anyway, So I've been reading this book, which is called Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. Pretty sure you know it. Very famous.
I'm aware of it. Yes.
And it's pretty much in highlighting what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I think there are like the main things. So you talked about like your friend who's retiring, and I think I was having this conversation this week or last week about retirement. I was like, I don't plan on retiring. I plan on like doing what I love.
Yeah. Well, there's different definitions of retirement, right? So when I'm talking about retirement, maybe they're just shifting away from that.
But retirement, so the word retirement, which is you retire from the workforce, is a very new concept, very westernized concept, right? So. The whole Ikigai book is studying the green zones around the world, which are the people that live the longest on average. So like they have usually like average ages of 90.
And they're all active.
Yeah, so there's Okinawa, there's like islands in Greece, and there are certain pillars which are consistent throughout all of these different green zones or blue zones. I'll research it, but I think it's a green zone or blue zone.
You can make it whatever zone you want. You have the peaceful zone.
A very colorful zone that people live for a long time. And live for a long time in a healthy way. So we're talking about people that are centenarians, and, 110 years old, and they're still very active in the community. Yeah. And the pillars are consistent. So there is a good diet, good exercise, involvement in the community.
I was going to say,
absolutely, and the work that's fulfilling and that makes you happy. Yeah. And it gives you money, but it's supporting the community at the same time. So something that you enjoy, something that serves the community,
absolutely,
and something that you're good at, and something that makes you money. And I think that for me that's what my life plan is, to do stuff that brings me joy and curiosity.
That's all it is. It's all about that joy. Yeah. So even retirement, I would never suggest to someone to retire in the sense of, some people, I don't know, have this concept that retirement means you're just going to sit around all day and do nothing. That to me is ridiculous. But But isn't it beautiful though? So think about it though. Isn't it beautiful when because we're talking about community, and when I don't know, you could actually be maybe in one of the smaller towns here in Malta, and it's summertime, it's the piazza, and you see the elderly people just chatting away, that is amazing.
What a vibe.
What a cool thing to be able to do, right? So I think this is exactly what we're saying is that and it's absolutely vital. Movement, without a doubt, I highly suggest it. I am inspired every day by my parents. My dad's 85, my mom's 82. They're dare I say they go out more than I go out. They're out every day, they walk, they exercise. My dad still goes down to the basement and lifts weights at 85.
How important is it to lift weight, though?
I don't say it's important to lift weight, but remember, that is a firm belief of his. He's lifted weights all his life,
but I mean,
he loves it.
There's science to back it, man. Lifting weights.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it keeps the muscle.
Yeah.
It's more than just weights. What I would say is movement.
Oh yeah.
Keep moving, and please, if I can make a suggestion to those who are, to the younger people. Which, we see a lot of people doing movement nowadays and exercising. Now, whether or not they're exercising for whatever, but it's a whole nother topic as well.
Yeah.
Yet my suggestion would be start from now, move, and make it a habit of yours. Because it is the exponential effect of years of moving that is going to affect you when you are 60, 70, 80, 90. Because it's not a matter of getting to 75 and going, okay, now it's time for me to move. That would be silly.
So, talking about reaffirming beliefs.
Yeah.
When I turned 30, I started to feel really, really stiff and all that stuff. And I still sometimes say it, and I stop myself, and I was like, oh man, like I'm getting so fucking old, like that stuff. And I can't.
Brilliant.
My knees
Great
hurt.
Stuff to say to yourself,
my
right?
My knees hurt, but so
yeah,
it's something my dad says a lot. By the
there
way,
you go.
It's an inherited behavior.
Yeah,
going back to look at us.
Yeah, blame your dad.
Look at us going back to the subject. Going back to the subjects we were talking about.
Right.
We're so planned, right?
Right. I mean, full circle.
And it kind of gave me the excuse not to do anything, right? So then obviously I started training. I think I started with weights. I got into boxing for a bit, very little, like 4 or 5 months, if any. Then I got back into weights. I got into calisthenics and running, and then I got into jiu-jitsu. And now I'm doing jiu-jitsu and weights for jiu-jitsu because I just enjoy the sport.
Yeah.
Shout out Sean Fitness, by the way. I'll put the link here. He's my jiu-jitsu coach as well. I would love to get them on here, the guys at the gym.
Cool,
because really cool people.
Yeah,
but
they have some amazing insights too.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's so absolutely, and they tie in with business as well. But and then I saw this quote where it says if you're 30 and you're stiff, you're not old, you're just not moving and not stretching enough. And now that I've incorporated, I incorporate a lot of stretching throughout my day. So it's not just, so I stretch before I train. Ideally I do 2 hours of training. Sometimes I do 3.5 if I have the time. And then I stretch after, and then I stretch throughout the day because, I'm sitting down. I'm driving for most of the time, or I'm sitting down in meetings, right? So I'm very rarely standing and doing any movement for work. So I tend to stretch for lower back because I've got a bit of a bad lower back or hip, whatever this side. So I try and stretch it so it keep it healthy, and I feel much better probably than I've ever felt before. I'm still a bit stiff sometimes because we're not getting any younger, but that kind of just
you could stop. I could stop saying that.
But it removed that belief of I'm too old to do this, and I still sometimes use it. But I remember when I started training, I used to tell any sparring partner take it easy because I'm much older than you. Until I started coming across people who are in their 40s, they're like, I'm older than you. Shut the fuck up.
These are just ingrained beliefs. Even when it comes to getting older, I mean, even as that I don't know, whatever needs to happen. Ultimately, you believe it or not, and I think it will. The time will come when we start to understand even how the mind affects all of this. We're going to be living a lot longer. When we finally realize when we finally realize how we can actually, the mind is very powerful. You can affect with your thoughts. You can affect every And you are affecting every single cell of your
What's
body.
that guy's name that fixed his vertebrae or something by thinking?
We have physical fitness, but then mental fitness maybe is a bit.
I think they go together. Huh?
Well, they have to go. They
go
do go
together,
together. So you have the physical, but this is where we've been fooled. Let's say up to a certain extent as well, is that we've been fooled to think that the physical aspect of our lives is actually more important than the non-physical aspect of our lives. Where in actual fact, it is the non-physical, how we are thinking, how our mind is thinking, that has a very, very profound impact on the physical. It's that is actually affecting the physical. It's being proven now by science as well. We can affect, like I said, every single cell of our body. We have epigenetics nowadays. We know about the neuroplasticity of the brain. By meditating, you can affect the proteins that you're producing. You can heal yourself, literally.
There's this guy we talked about him when we first met. He was on
Dr. Joe
IRC,
Dispenza.
Yeah, that guy, right?
Yeah, I was just at one of his conferences not long ago.
Oh, you said you were gonna go see him.
I
What
did.
was that?
Amazing. Like I was blown away in the sense of I learned some really cool stuff. But the thing that, what I loved about it as well, I went there and I was expecting us to be about 1,000 people.
Mm.
We were 3,000 people.
Jesus.
It was 3,000 people. The energy, imagine 3,000 people at the same time all meditating. And I just loved the community feel. And I said, you know what? Because this is, again, perspectives, coming back to perspectives. So many people are focused on how horrible this world is and how horrible people are, and people are, have bad intentions and all this. And I'm here in this conference room, or not room, conference hall with 3,000 people who all they want is to live a good life and for other people to live a good life and a happy life, and to understand how their mind can actually have an effect on the life that they're living. And I said, you know what a phenomenal community.
Going back to community.
Yeah. And it was actually a post I did then. I was actually filming from there and saying, listen, 3,000 is amazing. The feel, and this just proves that people want community. And that's why I also went back to a live talk, because I want to create that community with people.
Which is why, like, the happiest people I know are part of a community either way. So, I'm not particularly religious, but you see people that are part of religious communities that are very, very happy, very fulfilled, regardless of, what they do for work. But they're very, engaged. I'm, for me, one of the main reasons I keep going back to the gym is just because of the friends and community. I've made lifelong friends in the last 4 months that are just people that encourage me to get better, that call out my bullshit, that call out my doubts, my self-doubting, and give me confidence in something that I would have never thought in a million years I would be doing.
And it's amazing stuff. And I want to make something really clear, because I think this is a very valid point to remember as well. Is that, so when I say community as well, it's that intertwining with the community is amazing. I'm going to make something very clear though. It's that community will complement you.
Mm-hmm.
It is not the community that makes you happy.
Oh no.
So we make this clear to the listeners.
It's like you've plugged into something.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you need a community to be happy. So this is no different than a relationship. Okay? So it's not your partner that actually makes you happy. Another thing that we've been fooled to believe. Please don't buy my suggestion, okay? Please don't buy a greeting card that says to your partner, "You complete me." You are already complete. You don't need anybody else to complete you. This is something that we have been fooled to believe. You are already whole as an individual, a person. You have everything to be a complete. You're brilliant as you are already. Yet, it's nice to have people around us who complement our lives and do things that we enjoy doing. And because of that, what they help us do, this is what people don't realize. And I'll give credit here to Rupert Spira. I don't know if anybody's heard of him, but he has some great analogies. He has some great analogies. And essentially what happens is when you're around a community and they're doing things that feel good and all that, it's not because what they're doing is making you feel happy. What it's actually doing is allowing you to drop all of your facades, all of your veils, so that you're actually tapping in to who you truly are. Because your natural state, who you truly are, is happiness, joy, all of those wonderful things that so many people are searching outside for, but they're actually your natural state. So in those moments we're with our community, we actually drop those veils. So again, another comparison is when an entrepreneur or someone accomplishes something and they feel that euphoria of happiness, which is very temporary, very temporary. But what is happening is, it's not because they acquired whatever they did. In that moment, they dropped all their veils. They didn't need to think about the future, the past, and all that shit. They just dropped all those veils and they tapped into who they truly are. Now, the cool thing is this, and this is where the power lies. Notice how I drop my voice to make an emphasis here?
We'll edit in some cool music as well.
And you can see it. But this is where the power lies. Because what if you could actually learn how to purposefully tap into who you truly are? Not by accident, not by coincidence, not attempting to rely on something that's going to happen very temporarily. Because when you actually learn how to do that, dude, now you're happy all the time.
That's it.
Nothing can get in your way. Now you're human, so it's going to take some practice. It takes practice. But it's really cool stuff. And this is the stuff that blows me away.
Yeah. And I think it's a process as well, right? Like, so honestly, I've just been waiting for me to go back into my old mindset, because the last 3 months, where I've upped my level of intensity, when I like the way I train and stuff, I've just been really, I want to touch some wood here. I've just been really unfazable, and I've had shit thrown at me the last 3 months. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
So what are you saying we want to go back to?
No, because it's almost, I'm saying, like, is this something, have I achieved a permanent state of Zen where I'm unfazed? Because
okay, that's just your ego speaking.
No,
okay?
no, as in yeah, but it's the doubt ego. So it's not. It's,
okay, all right.
So it's not me.
I'm being very playful.
I'm not blowing smoke up my ass. I'm just saying, this is gonna end, right? Like this.
It doesn't have to end. Why does it have to end?
But this is gonna be my question, right? So, for example, I'm just talking about me personally.
Yeah.
Is this something that I can maintain as a baseline of just being super calm and focused, and I don't really lose my shit, and I don't really panic?
I'm going to ask you one question.
Yeah.
And again, I like giving references as well. So there's a great movie called The Peaceful Warrior. Don't know if you've ever watched it.
No.
Anyways, in there's one particular cool line, because there's this young kid. So he has his mentor. There's a story behind it, I suggest that anybody who's interested in this stuff watches this film. It's The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. The main actor is Nick Nolte. So Nick Nolte is the mentor, Socrates. And then there's this young kid, still at school, college, and the kid's, telling the guy, I live an amazing life. Like, I'm a grade A student. I'm about to qualify for the Olympics. I sleep alone only if I want to sleep alone. So he's, getting really cocky, sort of, right?
Yeah.
And he just looks at him. Socrates just looks at him. And I'm going to ask you this question now, Daniel. And you don't have to answer now or anything like that. But it's a really simple question, but it's a very profound question. Are you happy?
Yeah. Very much.
So if you're unhappy, why wouldn't you want to keep that state?
Yeah, but it's also I think this is something that's a self-destructive thing that kicks in, where I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm almost too happy.
Yeah. Can you be too happy, right?
Yeah.
Now, the thing is this though, and this is what's so cool about this. Of course, you can be that. You can be in that state, and you can be happy. I can almost guarantee you, that some sort of challenge will come to you.
I've had a
now,
really
it doesn't mean,
couple of months.
but it doesn't mean you can't be happy. But this is where you're going to grow. Again, we mentioned the growth spurts. This is where you're going to grow. right? And you can, and now when you can sway, this is the way I like to describe it. When you can sway through, I guess we can say this here. When you can sway through your shit and be happy, again, this is part of the true freedom. This is part of real success, right? So this is an amazing learning process that you're going through, that you can go, man, this is really cool. And it's very similar to what I was saying before, when I was saying, when things start to become a little bit easier, now we start to doubt and go, is it really am I really supposed to be this happy?
Yeah.
Now because I've been taught that, you can't have everything in life. I've been taught that, don't expect everything to be roses and butterflies, and don't expect. Well, dude, this is the way my life is right now. It's really cool. I like it. Now, yeah, some sort of contrast might be thrown at you, but you say, okay,
we'll deal with it and we'll move on.
It is what it is. Okay, how are we going to move forward now? What can I learn from this? Can I still be happy going through this? Yeah, so
I'm not saying I don't get angry. I'm just saying I do get angry, but I'm just like I reset to my baseline much quicker, and I don't let like bad things ruin my. I still get road rage all the time.
What do you get from road rage? Why is that so important to you?
I don't know.
What's the meaning you put on it, right?
That's the only constant that's not gone away in my life.
Think about that. That's just a reaction, right? Coming back to reaction.
Absolutely.
So, but again, you wouldn't do it if there wasn't some sort of secondary gain.
Oh no, the gain is I don't know.
What is the gain?
I think the gain is the outlet, the aggression outlet.
Okay, but what's the gain? So what do you get by having the outlet?
A release of energy.
And what does that give you?
Just calmness, back to baseline.
That's interesting. We could look into that easier.
But I mean, listen, like.
But anger is a really cool thing.
Keep in mind, I train. So now I do a combat sport. That's why I feel great after, right? Because you're choking people for 3 hours or getting choked, right?
So that's necessary to feel good, right?
No, I'm not saying it's not. It's necessary for me to feel good. But I think I was talking about this with my coach. I think it's necessary for us to have an outlet for aggression. I think that humans have a sense of aggression inherently in everyone.
Yeah, well, what a lot of people don't realize is anger. Like anger is still, it's a frequency.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't really have any. So people talk about something someone's really angry, or there's smaller anger, bigger anger, or whatever. There really isn't. It's anger is anger. It's just a frequency, right? Mm-hmm. It has its place.
Oh yeah.
Because I'll tell you what it gives you. Probably, and even the road rage. A lot of times what anger does, it gives a very brief sense of relief.
Oh, yeah. It's the steam thing, right?
I got pissed off at someone. I could blame someone. It's their fault.
Pressure valve.
And right, and it gives a very... In fact, that's why it's one of the quickest ways to bring someone out of depression. If you want to bring someone out of depression... Find a way to piss them off. Okay. Really? Find a way to piss. Why? Because depression is a lower frequency compared to anger. So piss them off, and they will feel a sense of relief. It will be brief. You don't want to leave them in anger. And this is why sometimes we want to leave people in depression, because they're easier to handle than when they're angry. They're easier to handle than when they're angry.
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden they got a sense of relief, and now we can move them up. Maybe we can move them up to hope. Right, and then
never thought about it.
And then move them up to courage. All of a sudden, right? So we're moving them up bit by bit. So it's because it's all about the frequencies we want to tap into, right?
Very interesting.
It's cool stuff. It's really amazing stuff.
That's a good start to our podcast. So tell me a bit about your background, Ken, because Jesus Christ, we just riffed this, huh?
Oh my God!
Talking about riffing, I just had this amazing experience last 2 weeks ago. So I walked in. I knew I had. So when I started this contract, I was like, right. So told the team the first couple of weeks I'm just going to observe, and I'm going to like ask you a few questions. We're going to like try and figure out kind of how the operation runs, like what our procedures are, what's the policy, like get to know you guys as the team.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then we'll do a workshop and I'll deliver a session. And we booked it. So we booked this 3.5 hour session in my calendar, and just left it there. And the thing is, I use my calendar religiously. Like everything is on my calendar, so I don't have to remember.
Yeah, of course.
And I just check it in the morning, and I just wing most stuff. Right, I just go and deal with it because I'm quite a winger.
Do you think I would have been here today if I didn't have it in my calendar?
Same. And then, so then what happened is I was in a meeting and I was like, okay, I forgot what I've got next. I was like, shit, I've got 3.5 hour training session. And I had zero stuff prepared. I genuinely, I am not lying about this. I had a zero information prepared. So I just walked in and I was like, right, what do you guys know about communication? I was like, okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Let's see where they're at.
And I riffed for 3.5 hours,
Yeah.
and they loved it. It was a really good session.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I riffed. Again, it's what you said. It was all from experience.
It's
I've
there.
delivered a ton of communication training sessions. But we brought out, we split it into 7 different facets of communication.
So I'm going
Might be correct, might be incorrect, but that's what we talked about.
Yeah.
And they loved it, and I think they took something away from it. But it was just a great
really,
training
it's a
session.
real cool thing here to intertwine with what you're talking about. You know when you go into that, so you're in your zone, right?
Yeah.
Now I don't know if you've learned how to purposely, whenever you want, go into that zone. Because the cool thing about that is, so even when I'm going to do a talk, even though I have some notes prepared, I'll have some notes prepared in that. But I always take a moment before and you call it whatever you'd like to call it. Okay, people, you can ask God, you can ask the divine, you can ask the Holy Spirit. I like to call it the umami self. But for those of you who don't realize that I came up with that term because in the umami world, the definition of umami in the food world is the essence of deliciousness. It's when you eat that particular food and it just tastes so phenomenal. You can't describe it. There's no words to describe it. It's just like, this tastes amazing. So it's the essence of deliciousness. So the umami self is the essence of deliciousness of who you truly are. And that's the energy you want to tap into. When you learn how to tap into that, I just ask. I say, listen, okay, I've got my notes in that. I tap into that energy and I say, okay, I got a group of people in front of me. What do they need to hear? What's the most important thing for them to hear? And I allow inspiration to flow through me then as much as possible. Now, do I get, let's make it clear, the clouds aren't opening up and thunder's coming down. And no, but a word might pop in, or I might be going along, even as we're doing that here. So even before I got here, I just said, listen, give me what people need to hear. And as we're going along, you say something, that word, we need to deal with that. Okay. And that's inspiration.
Yeah.
And that's where inspiration comes from.
That's such a good articulation. So I've never thought about it that way, but I noticed that every episode is very much like the way I act and question and talk. Every episode is very much relating to what happened in the last maybe week or even the last 24 hours. Because that's kind of where I gained the inspiration from. But that question is really good. And I usually ask that question to the audience. I don't deliver many keynotes. I'm delivering a bit more training now than I used to, but I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. Particularly now I'm focusing a lot on systemic coaching because I've been doing this course around systemic coaching to get like the ICF accreditation and all that stuff. But I do ask so what is it that you want to talk about? Like, what's the biggest issue? So I get really, I notice that if I trigger my curiosity, my energy level is increased straight away. So if I make myself curious and it's a fabricated curiosity, it becomes genuine very quickly.
Yeah.
And I've only realized that very recently. And I realized that because I experienced a 4-year period where I just stopped being curious and I just became very, very content with what I've got. Which is, I think, is very common. And I notice it in a lot of people who are just content, I've got a full-time job, it pays well, don't have to work very hard, and I can just sit and watch TV or play video games all day. And it just really killed my spirit for that 4-year period.
Right.
Because I'm just naturally a curious person.
So part of that is great. When someone says, I'm content where I am, that's phenomenal. But I'm going to add another piece to that. Because it's actually a very important aspect. So, and I'll change it a tiny bit. So, I'm happy I'll accept where I am. I accept where I am right now today, and that could be very content. It could be being maybe not so content, maybe not. Yet, I'm happy where I am. I'm happy where I am. Yet, I'm eager for more. So now I have an acceptance of the presence. I'm not denying. I'm not saying I don't have enough, or I don't have, or I'm tapping into that energy of lack or anything like that. I'm content where I am. I'm happy where I am.
Fireworks in the background.
It is summer. Yet I'm eager for more.
Yeah.
So now there's that eagerness, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I can guarantee you that is that's very natural for the human spirit to want to be eager for more, because there always is more.
But so what I
without
lost,
attachment. I have to add that. Without attachment.
I had lost the eager for more part.
Yeah.
And I noticed it
happens to a lot of people.
And I've noticed it. There's one friend which I noticed it in. And I remember that, like, after I noticed that, maybe like a month later, he was like, I've just realized that I'm very depressed. And this person had nothing to want for, right? So stable income.
But remember, all of those things you're mentioning are all external.
Yeah.
They haven't looked inward for the joy yet.
Yeah.
And external is very short-lived. So I don't care if you have a rocket ship that goes to Mars. Once it gets to Mars and it's done, now what?
What's the next step?
This actually happened to the first astronauts, because they went to the moon, came back, they were not mentally prepared, the parades were over, and then you're an astronaut. Take this into consideration. You're an astronaut. You just went to the moon and came back. You've lived your life for this, and now it's over.
Yeah.
And the astronaut's going,
what's next?
Who the hell am I now?
Yeah.
Who the hell am I now? Because the identity has totally been taken away now. Okay, you're an astronaut. I get it. But now, what's next? I went to the moon. So, and this happens with entrepreneurs, getting so attached to our businesses. So, but what if? And this is anybody. It could be, like, we'll use, and again, I have nothing against Elon Musk or anybody or whatever they do and whatever. All the power to these people. Amazing. But the fact of the matter is this. Everything external can be gone in a flash or in a snap.
Yeah, there you go.
It can be gone instantly. So if today, and this is why non-attachment is so important, and this includes, and this is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, okay? So I'll make it very clear here. But I'm good with this. That means with your partner, that means with your kids, that means with your business. It's everything that is of this world. I highly suggest you learn how not to be attached. And you might say, Ken, what are you talking about? My kids. I mean, I'm not saying not to love your kids. I'm not saying to be compassionate with your kids. But the fact of the matter is, if your identity is wrapped up, is attached to any of these things, the minute they're gone, now what? Because they could be, right? Whether it's a relationship, sorry, I'm just let me.
No.
Whether it's a relationship, so someone could pass away, a relationship could finish, go their ways. Children, same thing. They move out of the house, they're gone, they're living their own lives.
That's it.
Even if they haven't even moved out of their house, they're living their own lives. But your life has been all wrapped up, taking care of them, which is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. But now you start to go, who am I? A child could, I would never wish this on anybody, but a child could pass away.
Yeah,
a parent will pass away. And learning about this detachment, again, the freedom you will have, because now your happiness, again, your life does not rely on all of these attachments, because they can be gone in a flash. So really, really important aspect.
No, I agree. And I was going to say, that's why, a lot of parents, when their kids reach a certain age, they have this identity crisis. A lot of people, I think mothers experience it quite a bit as
very
well.
Very much experience it.
They, especially in the beginning stages of, after the baby's born, they're so entrenched in kind of, they're having to sleep and wake up with the baby, especially if they're breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And then, 12 months in, you'll be like, am I just who am I? Am I just like this mother now?
When was the last time I had an adult conversation?
Yeah, when's the last time I hung out with some adults?
Who am I now? All of a sudden, it's like this identity crisis. Is this this is my life? Yet, but that will pass. It is a time. Yeah. It is a time, and this is why it is so important to, to find those things that you really enjoy doing. Like even, and we're talking about entrepreneurs as well. How many entrepreneurs do I speak to? And I have to get them to slow down. And again, we can have conversations about this.
No.
I have to get them to slow down. And then I remind them, I say, listen, is there something that you used to really enjoy doing? And now you've just completely let that go? Whether that's play a musical instrument or go to the gym or I don't know, enjoy the cinema, for instance. I don't know, whatever it is. And I go, so why aren't you incorporating this in your life? If this is something you truly enjoy doing, because this is a time for you to tap into yourself, something you truly enjoy doing. Like, man, I had a client, they used to like to play the bass. They said, but it's been forever for me since I picked up the bass. I said, pick up the bass, man. Pick it up, dedicate, schedule, and find 15 minutes. Now, I understand it's challenging. You've got all these things going on in your business, in your life, your parents, and all of these things. I get it. But make it a point so you're doing something that you really enjoy doing. Some people it's sketching. Some people it's dancing. But find that thing that you love and still do it. Because, man, you're going to reach an age, and I can guarantee this, almost 100%. You're going to be looking at your child or your grandchild or whoever, and you're going to be going, I really wish I danced more. You're going to be giving them that advice. You're going to be saying to them, you know what? Remember to do the things that you love to do. But why wait, man? Why wait?
And what a good way to end the episode, because we're like an hour and a half in. But what a good way to end it, right? Like, just do what you love.
Man, stop waiting. Find the opportunities to do what you love. It's not going to take over your life, and maybe it will. Maybe you'll make a business out of it. You never know. You might get the inspiration, right? But do those things that you love doing, man.
Get off your ass and do it. Stop it. Stop it.
Stop it. You ever seen that? You ever seen that clip? Bob Newhart.
It's more started than stop it.
Start it. Stop
No,
thinking
stop
bad.
it. No, I know it's stop it. Because it's Bob Newhart, he's a psychologist, or what he's playing a psychologist, and this person's going on about, when they die and being buried, I think, or something, and he's like, stop it. Just stop it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Just do it, man.
Go ahead and absolutely. Find the time. And people say, oh, but I don't have time.
You can make time.
When you tell me that you don't have time to slow down, that's really why you need to do it more. That's the time. When someone says, I don't have time to meditate or be quiet, that's when you need to be doing it more. Because that's where you're going to find the joy. And when I say meditate or quiet time, that people go into a really cool zone when they play a musical instrument. They can go in a zone, they'll forget everything. And that's all you want to do.
But I do. So I played. I haven't touched the guitar in a while, but I've played guitar for over a decade now, I think. But shit. Almost 2 decades.
How time flies by. You're just proving the point, right?
And you do get in the zone. When I train, I get in the zone. Like when you are rolling in jiu-jitsu, like you are in this mental zone.
Absolutely, you have to be.
What's my opponent doing? What am I doing? Where's my foot going? What's next? Like, how am I going to escape?
And then you start to do correct me if I'm wrong. You actually, at some point, you don't even think about doing
No. So
you're just doing it.
I'm not good enough to do that yet.
But this is where you're creating the habit.
But
this is where you're creating the program.
Yeah, so there is a flow state. Michael Musumeci, who's like one of the most successful Americans to actually do the sport, it says that so a jiu-jitsu round can last very long time. Like if it's a free grappling competition, you can be grappling for 35-40 minutes, which is very intense. But he realized he was really struggling against this opponent. So he said, I just decided to switch my brain off. And I just flow stated for 5 minutes until I got in a position where I was like, okay, I can catch him out now.
Yeah.
And then he won that tournament.
Because that's the subconscious coming in, right? The subconscious, once you've created the habit, you don't need to think about it.
That's it.
I mean, you don't think about, I don't know.
Breathing.
You don't think, we can use breathing. You don't think about your heart beating. You don't think about, and you've got a ton of other habits you have already in place. There's times you don't even think about where you're driving. You've gotten so used to the route, you actually are surprised sometimes, and you go,
shit.
Did I actually drive through that town? I don't even recall driving through that town, right? Because you just automatically do it.
All the time. But listen, Ken, I want to stop the episode because I don't want it to be too long, and then we can do an episode 2.
Sure.
It's been
absolutely.
a very enjoyable conversation.
I loved it.
And the time went by really quick. What we do before at the Grow Up Podcast is ask you to deliver a message if you had the whole world listening. So what would be your message to the whole world?
My message to the whole world would be this. And it's a message I love to give. I often do it on my videos. Remember to laugh a lot more, especially when you can laugh at yourself. That's my message.
It's amazing. That's a good one, Lily. I think that's a really good end, message to end the episode on.
And it's so easy.
Yeah. Ken, thank you very much for coming.
My absolute pleasure,
It's
Maddie.
been
Anytime,
really awesome.
you just let me come. You just invite me, and I'm here.
Yeah.
And I'm here.
This has been a really good conversation. Completely winged, by the way. We didn't plan it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the best ones, man.
Beautiful.
They are the best ones.
Beautiful. Thank you for coming. We'll see
Absolute
you on the next
pleasure.
one for sure.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.